Welcome to the Upshot, Multi-World Disc Golf's podcast about the latest in the disc golf world. I'm Charlie Eisenhood, the editor. Joining me is Josh Mansfield. And the latest in the disc golf world right now is that the 2022 season is underway. And Josh, did it ever get off to a great start? What a finish. Both FPO and MPO come all the way down to the wire. Drew Gibson beats Gannon Buhr in a playoff, a 4-hole playoff. Gannon Buhr controlling the leaderboard for most of the tournament, had a lead heading into the final round, could not quite hold off Drew Gibson down the stretch of the back nine, and Gibson gets him in a playoff. Over in FPO, Katrina Allen swings to a lead, Paige Pierce ties it up, back and forth they go. It all comes down to 18. Paige Pierce's upshot goes into the water, and Katrina Allen gets the one-stroke win with a perfectly played hole 18. And takes down her 37th Elite Series win of her career. So, Josh, what a start to the season.
What a start. And I couldn't help but think the entire time. I watched all the FPO final round. And, there's the great finish from the FPO with Paige going OB and then Katrina getting the win that way. And then I'm like, wow, what a great FPO finish. And then the MPO side comes in. I'm like, man, we can't, it keeps getting better. Like it really keeps you engaged. I love live disc golf. I really do.
It's kind of funny because there's weird overtones of worlds running through this tournament. Obviously not entirely the same players, but we saw Katrina and Paige go down to 18 just a few months ago, and a missed upshot from Paige Pierce was the difference after Katrina played 18 perfectly. And then, you have this amazing finish and it's like, wow, how is MPO going to top that? And then it does. Playoff, in the case of Worlds, obviously the shot, which by the way, I hope you like the shot because you're going to see it every 5 minutes on DGN this year. I honestly, I hope they take the feedback of people being like, yo, that was just too much. And they dial it back a little bit because it really is. It's a little too much.
Yeah, it is. The first time I watched it, I was like, oh yeah, especially on that that ad with Steady Ed in the interview. I was like, wow, what a great way to start it. And then they just kept showing it. And I was like, I think this might be enough now.
So we got so much to get to. Hopefully you've become a subscriber and you caught our rapid reaction show on Sunday night, where we, really broke down particularly the final rounds and talked a lot about Drew and Katrina and Gannon Buhr. Obviously more to come here on today's show, but we hope you become a subscriber because we're going to be doing live rapid react shows after every Elite Series event this season. And of course, during the majors, we'll be doing daily shows. As we do. So let's talk a little bit about what we saw this weekend. And we're going to be kind of just breaking down some recap stuff here to start. And then a little later in the show, we're going to do a segment that we call Overreaction or On Target. Because it's the first tournament of the year. Everyone's going to overreact. And we have some takes. And maybe they're overreactions, but maybe they're not. So we'll get to those as well. First up, I just want to talk about Drew Gibson because he comes out in the first round and he just doesn't shoot his best round. He's down I think he's around 40th and, only shot a 5 under, not good enough on a set of courses that require you to really birdie. Mm-hmm. And then he rallies back to not only get back into the mix, but to eventually force a playoff. And it took he had to make so many key shots. Like any mistake down the stretch of the back nine of the final round, and he gets knocked out. And he basically just did not make mistakes. And Gannon Buhr was just not quite sharp enough to close it out. But I think the thing that, Josh, that I want to get to about Drew is that, and we talked about this in our rapid show, he was third this weekend in strokes gained putting. So it's not just that he can bomb, which obviously watching him throw backhands is like one of the best things about disc golf right now. But he was as good as Gannon Buhr was, Drew was almost as good.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, Drew was first in Circle 2 putting this weekend. And that speaks to what feels like a turnaround for him after earlier in his career where putting was a major weakness. Now he has, not always as good as this, but he's a strong putter now. And when you combine that with his obviously tremendous ability to throw the disc, it makes him a week in, week out threat.
I think Drew has a couple of other things going for him with that distance, is that Drew is one who will commonly disc down. And I think that gives him the ability to shape shots that are more comfortable for him versus other of his competitors. The way he throws a buzz is unreal. And it still goes 400 feet, 500 feet. I don't know. It's a long ways. It's really impressive. The one thing that I would say is still at risk of holding Drew back, and this is something we talked about last year, where he was playing really well, like Ledgestone, for example, is his OB. He still had, in terms of top 5, it's not until you get to Ricky down in 7th. Adam tied for 7th. Ricky and Adam had 10 and 12 strokes OB respectively. Drew had 11 throws though in OB. So that's still a little bit higher, but it's cleaning up. And so he is combining elite distance and shot shaping with this putting. And that makes Drew, like you said, a constant threat that I think you're going to see regardless of the course, regardless of the stretch of tour. Drew Gibson's going to be there.
So in Drew Gibson's last and only other Elite Series win, 2019 Portland Open, which he won a playoff against Eagle McMahon, he was barely above average in putting, finished 57th. And this time, he finishes 3rd. Think about that difference. He gained almost 10 strokes on the average player at LVC on the putting green. So when I looked it up, because I wanted to have a sense, like, is this a sustainable thing for Drew Gibson? Is this just like one good weekend, but he's not actually a good putter? So here's his numbers from 2019, okay? 78% from C1X and 23% from Circle 2. 78 and 23. Okay numbers, but 78's pretty low from Circle 1. 2020, he improves ever so slightly, but basically no change. 79 and 24. 2021, 82 and 29. Okay, that's like a demonstrable step forward. Still a little low Circle 1, but getting better. This weekend, he was 84 and 45. Now, I don't think Drew Gibson's a 40+% Circle 2 putter week in and week out, but it's obvious watching him putt that he has a lot of confidence right now, and he's clearly just improved to the point where it makes him like a scary player as opposed to one who you can count on to miss the putts when they count and not end up being able to win, even though he's capable on certain courses of pretty consistently being in the top 5.
So, Charlie, here's my question for you then, because we talk often about how it's the archer, not the arrow. But Drew has, and I mean, I guess this is in part sponsorship, you have to, but Drew credits his EV7 putter as being the primary reason that his putting has increased and his confidence has gone up with it. To what extent do you think if Drew just changes to any putter, that makes that difference? Or do you think there's something about having the right putter in a mixed bag that really could be an advantage for players moving forward and improving their game?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's definitely it. I think if you gave him a putter that was very similar in glide and stability and whatever, then sure, he could learn to be good with that putter too. I mean, we watch players switch bags and maintain their putting stats from past seasons. Mm-hmm. It's a lot more about getting the feel with the particular disc than it is about the disc itself. So do I think that EV7 has some sort of magical putter? No, I do not think that's the issue. But I do think that he found a putter that he liked. And he also, keep it in mind, right? There's a financial incentive for Drew Gibson to practice his putting a lot and get people to buy the discs. Because he gets a little bit of royalty on all those discs that get sold. So how much does that weigh in? I don't know, but clearly he has improved. I don't, again, I don't think this is kind of we're going to see him just be absolutely lights out from Circle 2, but I do think that he's clearly taken a step forward as a putter. So let's talk about Gannon Buhr. 16 years old. And, I think some people probably for the first time are learning about Gannon Buhr, but Gannon Buhr was pretty darn good last season too when he was playing. Didn't play a full tour, but I mean, the kid is top 20 in the world right now. And I think showed you at Las Vegas Challenge why he is going to be very scary, because he's still growing. Like, you can see his body like physically changing. He has all this height, the levers that he has now. He's going to become a better, stronger thrower of the disc as he gets a little bit older. And somebody said in the chat during our live show that he could be playing at an elite level for 20 years. Like, he's only 16. Think about the promise that he showed this weekend, because as somebody who's, he's a long thrower, but he's not one of the biggest bombers on tour right now. And he actually was just, he had 5, almost 6 strokes gained from tee to green. Compare that to Drew, who had 12, Calvin, who had 13. He was not one of the best players from tee to green, but his game is so all around solid. And obviously his putting is spectacular that he was able to just continue to apply pressure. And I really think the only reason that he lost is because there was just a little too much pressure in the final few holes.
I have to kind of eat my words a little bit, because in our subscriber bonus from last week, where we talked about after round 1, I said that the stat profile of having low Circle 1 in regulations and high putting isn't a sustainable stat for winning at LVC. I think if you look at a lot of the other players, I mean, all the way down to most of the top 10, you see a 50% plus Circle 1 in regulation. And I think that did prove true as a general rule. But I specifically said Gannon Buhr's statistical profile was unsustainable to win LVC, and I was very wrong about that. I guess I didn't expect him, Andrew, to go 45% from Circle 2 all weekend long. It's incredible that even without the distance that Drew has, or Calvin for that matter, that he's able to play so well and so consistently, both in scrambling and in putting, that he's able to finish where he did. He is a remarkable player who I really expect to see on tour for a very long time.
Yeah, I mean, the kid's skinny. Like, if he gets up in the gym, he's going to be able to add some distance and become a terrifyingly good player. Like, he could be great. Like the best player of his generation type situation. I really think that that's possible. Because again, like, this Vegas is not the ideal set of courses for his game, and yet he still put himself in a position to win.
Yeah.
And frankly, what the difference between him winning and losing was like a couple missed putts, and then the approach on 18 that hit pretty in a pretty good spot, and just happened to, instead of kind of sticking there, it sort of had a little bit too much spin on it, and it kind of rolled itself out of bounds. What are you going to do? Them's the breaks. I think he maybe probably in retrospect wishes he could have stabled up a little bit more, thrown a disc that would have dumped a little bit more. But I mean, it's not like he like just fluffed it and it went straight out of bounds. Like, he hit it right by the basket in the wood chips and it just trickled out. So, that's disc golf, because if that sticks, he wins. And we're talking about Gannon Buhr winning his first Elite Series event.
Yeah. He was in control all the way through the tournament, including hole 18.
That's right.
I mean, he really was. And it's it's something that I think, the way you have it written is Gannon Buhr a Vegas special. I don't think so. I think if anything, this is, like you said, a preview for what is going to be an excellent season elsewhere, because Gannon Buhr's skill set, I'm just already imagining and thinking about Gannon Buhr at courses like at GMC, for example, where that scrambling and having a great putter is going to be essential. He's going to play so well. He's going to play so well. I'm interested to see how that continues as, Chris Dickerson fills into his bag, as Eagle gets healthy, as Paul's back in the field. That's I think where we're going to start seeing the real litmus test of where Gannon Buhr slots in the rankings.
So in round 2 on the Innova course that they also played in round 4, he went 5 under in the back 9. On round 4, he went 2 under in the back 9. And honestly, the primary difference is that on holes 12, 15, and 16, in round 2, he hit 3 circle 2 putts on each of those holes. He had circle 2 looks on each of those same 3 holes in round 4, and he missed all 3. So as good as his putting was, and he hit some absolutely monster putts earlier in the round, he lost it a little bit down the stretch. And even the one that he missed in the playoff, like that's a putt that he makes most of the weekend, but just went a little high off the band. And I think that's the sign of the pressure. Mm-hmm. I think as poised as he was, it's not like he started just completely falling apart, but it was the little stuff. It was the big putts that suddenly weren't going in. It was the approach shot that suddenly didn't stay in bounds. Just the little things that made it difficult. And you have to be in those situations to learn how to deal with them in the future. And this is a great learning experience for Gannon Buhr. And I mean, obviously he's getting all the deserved praise. I mean, for a kid this young to play this well over a 4-round tournament is pretty impressive.
Once the playoff went in, from hole 1, Gannon's putt looked a little bit like you could see the pressure getting to him because it went left side, and I was surprised a little bit that putt caught as well as it did. Hole 3 was a pretty good putt, and then goes to hole 5, and I was like it was pretty close, and it still was hole 5. Anyway, there were 2 putts that ended up left side in that playoff that I thought right from that point, I was like, I think Gannon's going to miss a putt that is probably going to cost him this round. That's where it was going to be. And I truly believe that Drew was laying up expecting Gannon to make that putt with them going to 17 and 18 to play, where Drew felt like he could win there. So you're right. Like the pressure gets to him, but he's 16.
I know.
Like, if the pressure gets to you all year, that's still fine.
All right, let's more on MPO in a bit. Let's talk a little bit about Katrina Allen and Paige Pierce. Katrina Allen has now been in the top 2 at Las Vegas Challenge since the dawn of time, and takes down the win this year. I think this might be her first time winning it as an Elite Series event. I'd have to go back and look through the timestamps of when this went from being an A tier to being an Elite Series, but I believe it was the first time winning it as an Elite Series event. It looked like she was going to walk away with this thing at one point. She was up 6 strokes after round 2, but she gave the whole lead back after round 3, tied with Paige Pierce. Actually goes down briefly in Paige Pierce takes the lead, I think on hole 1. She takes a lead in the final round. Then Katrina surges back out to a substantial lead and then gives it back again, but then able to close it out on 18. And, it's so interesting how things happen, right? Paige Pierce, approach game, hole 18. If there's a knock on Paige's game, it's that those pressure approaches seem to be a little bit of an issue. Not always super clean with the upshots. We saw it at Worlds. We saw it here.
And I wonder, it's hard to decide what exactly is the cause here. Because I think on the one hand, Paige is really experienced at playing from ahead and winning a lot of tournaments. But the thing is, she's ahead on Katrina Allen at Worlds. But when Katrina hit that, crazy upshot, I don't even know that. I guess it was an upshot. It felt more like a drive, but her second shot that got inside the circle with that F7, it felt like there was the momentum swing, and that even though Paige was still ahead by a stroke, that just based on where she was and the momentum in swinging in Katrina's favor, it felt a little bit like now Paige had to match Katrina, not Katrina was matching Paige. I wonder then if it's either, first off, that upshots are just a range that are not comfortable for her, and it's the shot overall that she feels a little bit uncomfortable with. And in most cases, her putting makes up for it. But in that case, especially on 18, there wasn't really a good chance at making up for it. Or if it's the latter, where you have Paige who just simply isn't comfortable or hasn't been comfortable in the past, I don't know, maybe season, 2 seasons, with playing in such tight circumstances where she's the one trying to catch, in the last few holes, trying to catch the leader. I don't know. Maybe it's a combination of both, but those are the two factors that I kind of see as being the possibilities for Paige's game right now.
Yeah, it's an interesting scenario. Paige goes from being far and away the dominant player in the division, and still obviously at the top, but there's a lot of pressure now. You've got Katrina playing great with brand new discs. Looked awesome with the DGA discs. I don't think we need to say more about it. Just very comfortable, clearly. And then you've got the European women back here, and the spotlight is brighter than ever. There's just a lot going on there. And, I think just credit to Katrina, who weathered the storms well this weekend. That was the thing I was most impressed by. Like, even when she had stretches of poor play, she would bounce back with birdies. Her putter was really good for a round. Her putter was really bad for a round. Ends up being in the, sub 60% from Circle 1X. It's not great, but she also hit some clutch putts when she needed to. And so, it's kind of what we've seen from Katrina. I don't really see a substantial difference in her game as she switched, bags. No surprise to me, but, to see her this comfortable this fast is a great sign. And I think, just wasn't fazed by the fact that she had things kind of go against her at certain points during the weekend, and stayed true and played clutch down the stretch. Katrina is super clutch.
Katrina is clutch. And just talking a little bit about, her dominance at LVC, Steve, shout out to Steve in the Discord, who says that Katrina has shot the hot round the last 6 times on the Innova course and has the hot round 8 out of 12 times 12 rounds all time.
Just a beast on this course.
She is. And this is the hardest of the courses. So it's legit. It's impressive how well she plays on these courses.
I'm not even sure I want to say it's the hardest of them anymore, though, because players tore that course apart in the final round. There were I think it was 5 MPO players who shot 13 under.
That's fair.
Now, how hard is it?
I wish the PGA ratings were available. I want to look at them right now. As of time of recording, they do not have them up because they are still pending. So,
and just think about the way the bounces happen. Paige getting a big skip and going out of bounds on 18, but Katrina had a drive on hole 15 that was, didn't get enough turn, was clearly heading out of bounds. It was for sure out of bounds, and then we get up there and it's in bounds. Apparently. And you don't really see this anywhere on any of the video of this, but according to Terry Miller and people who are on the ground, the disc was stopped and knocked back inbounds by a spectator. It hit their foot and stayed in bounds. This is a problem. Okay. So, obviously you take your lucky breaks when you get them, but that should have been a stroke. Paige Pierce should have, gotten an extra stroke there, and maybe that tends it to a playoff. Maybe Paige wins. We need to have a situation in disc golf where if there's OB, we need the spectators right off the line, okay? We can't have scenarios where somebody's bag or somebody's foot, because they're standing right on the edge of OB, is affecting the game. We cannot have it. We cannot have it. There's a little too much just as much as the Pro Tour has done to professionalize events, you still sometimes look at the coverage and see just a bunch of random people milling around all over the course. And that has to get better. The crowd control has to get better.
You saw it hole 3 on the playoff with Drew and Gannon when they're lining up for that shot that, it's just to the little peninsula green that's right on the edge of the water. The hyzer line that everybody takes was just crowded with people. And the Pro Tour guys are like trying to back them up, saying, we got to have room for this shot. And that's even in the case of like, even once they did get moved back a little bit off the line, I still think that as a player, it's a little nervy to throw a hyzer over the heads of all the spectators like that.
Yeah. I mean, there's a balance to be found between like keeping people in the action and having them close without having them in a position where they're going to actually affect play. Like, you shouldn't have people standing right at the line of OB. You shouldn't have people standing in the flight path of the shots. And this is a kind of a moving target. It's a work in progress, but it's just there's a little too much freedom right now for spectators to kind of go wherever they want. And we just don't want to have situations where the outcomes of tournaments are potentially being affected because somebody was standing in the wrong spot. That's all I have to say about that. How about the Europeans, Josh? We talked all about how they're coming. Well, they came. They played. How did it go for them? Let's take a look through the leaderboard and talk about some of the European players. We got to start with Kristen Tatar.
Yes. Kristen Tatar needed one warm-up tournament and get ready because Waco, I think she's going to be in the mix for the win. I mean, she's already was close, but I really think I would not be shocked at all if Kristen Tatar wins Waco. I think it's a very real possibility.
Okay, foreshadowing some picks perhaps for next week. Kristen Tatar finishes third place, 25 under, 5 shots back of Katrina Allen. She was kind of up and down. She had some amazing holes where she was like, getting eagles, and then she'd go out of bounds twice and take a double bogey. It was a little up and down, but the ups were really high up, 200 foot throw in, multiple eagles all weekend. And I think I agree with your general assessment, which is that like she needs to shake the rust off a little bit and, get used to the US time zone tour, the whole deal. But we saw the same thing last year. She looked a little not quite on her best game at Worlds and then sharpened up and started winning everything. So maybe we'll see the same thing, but a great start for her. Evelina Salonen in 5th place ended up not being super competitive for the top of the leaderboard, but was throwing the disc great. Unfortunately, I think the putter a little bit held her back this weekend.
Yeah, held her back a lot of bit this weekend. I will be honest, though, and we'll get to this a little bit later, that, I mean, she rounds out your perfect podium. This is the first time I think I've ever rooted against somebody really hard in disc golf. So sorry, Evelina. I think you're a great player, but I really did not want you to take 3rd place this weekend.
Yeah, I had Cat Page Evelina, and I just chose the wrong European. But it was looking like it could happen.
Made me a little nervous, but Evelina, I'm a little bit more worried about. Her rust, and maybe it's just based on amount of time. It's interesting because Evelina is, or has historically been, the best of the 3 of them. But it's hard to know to what extent that putter is just, early season, welcome back to the US, welcome back to tour nerves, and which percent of it is historically, because back in 2019, the last full season, that and mostly full as a European. She didn't tour the entire time, obviously, but her stats were in 68% and I think 19. I have to pull up. Sorry, I had it. But anyway, it was not great putting in her last full tour either. And so I wonder, is it rust or is it she just really needs to work on the putter. 68 and 12 was the stats. So the putter definitely needs to get better before I'm willing to pick Evelina to win a tournament.
She has times where she putts well, but on the average, she seems like she gets the yips sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
We saw it's why she lost the European Championship last year.
Yeah,
putter just completely evaporated on her. And saw this weekend that it just wasn't sharp. Missed a lot of putts. I think she missed 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 circle one putts in the final round. And, she's not going to win if she makes all those, but she might finish on the podium. So, Evelina, great player, but yes, it is the weakness for her. Further down the leaderboard, Licky Lorenzen did make the cut, ended up finishing at even par in 20th place. And we got to talk about Hannah Blomroos, who did not even make the cut, Josh.
Yeah, bad pick for me for podium finish, for winning the tournament. Did not look comfortable at all in any part of the tournament, in any part of her game. Looked really just uncomfortable.
Yeah, and the putter was just brutal. Did not make a single circle 2 putt, 37% from circle 1.
Mm-hmm. Her best stat was circle 2 in regulation at 10th. That's obviously not good enough to make the cut, literally and figuratively. She was OB all the time. Her putting was really in that round 3 when she's pushing to make the cut, 13% circle 1x putting.
Yeah, just didn't have it.
Yeah,
just didn't have it. I think Hannah Blomroos is going to be fine. I think you shake this one off and you say on to the next.
Mm-hmm.
She's not going to, she's not going to keep missing the cut. She's a great player.
I agree. Do you think she gets an Elite Series win? Podium finish? What's her ceiling to you?
Ceiling? Well, I think ceiling is a win. Yeah. But
okay, but
I think the sort of likely outcome, I wouldn't be shocked to see her finish on the podium.
Okay.
To me, as we foreshadow our next segment, that it's an overreaction to say that this, represents what Hannah Blomroos is. No, we've seen much, much better from her. She won the European Championship last year. Okay. Mm-hmm. She beat out Evelina and Kristen. We know that she can be competitive. I think she was nervous. I think we saw nerves from her. It's a lot to come back. Disc golf has grown a lot. You got spectators back. You're on the live coverage, and you just traveled across the world to come play, and she didn't look super comfortable, and I wouldn't read too much into this.
And your warm-ups have been February and January in Finland.
Right.
So
right. let's give everybody some time to get it going. I think the same way that we think Kristen can excel and win, I think we can see Evelina and Hannah pick it up. We know they will. They're great players.
Yeah.
How about over in MPO? Linus Carlson was the top finisher in MPO. What'd you think of the way he played, Josh?
Same thing. Really, really similar sentiments that I had for Kristen Tatar, where I feel like he needs time to kind of work off some of that rust. If you look just at his scores, the 6 under round 1, obviously not enough to cut it. Shoots a 10 under round 2 that is really good. A 4 under round 3, again, a little rusty. And then going back to round 4, shoots 8 under. I have some thoughts I'm going to share in our next segment about Linus, but I expect him to be competitive.
Yeah, and he was very impressive with the putter. Mm-hmm. 92% from circle 1, and 4th overall in strokes gained behind Drew Gibson, Luke Sampson, and Gannon Buhr. Obviously a great sign. I think this is not the courses for him.
No.
When things are not going to be ultra bomber, I think we're going to see Linus Carlson finish in the top 10. Great putter, great all around skills. Solid 75% scramble. Didn't go OB, a lot more than other people. I think was really just held back because tee to green, he just wasn't good enough. He couldn't give himself enough birdie looks. And that's obviously a weakness in his game, but I think that on courses that favor more technical lines, we're going to see Linus Carlson be in the mix. And so, I think all things considered, a top 20 finish is a pretty good result for him. As we go down the leaderboard a little further, we find Seppo Payu, who kicked off to a great start, ended up finishing in 26th place. His 9-under final round moved him up 16 spots. So he had dropped down a little bit after round 3, but then popped back up. All things considered, I thought this was a nice showing for Seppo, who's really struggled the last couple seasons, but looked competitive. I don't know how much more we're going to see of him in the U.S. this year, though.
Yeah, Seppo was the one who I said at the beginning, or right after round 1, that I didn't feel like his statistic profile set him up for success. And when the putter went cold in round 2, his drives just were not enough to keep him in it. He went OB way too often, and that round 2 really what held him back from finishing top 10 even.
Oyvind Jarnes and Albert Tom finished in tie for 34th place. They both made the cut. If you go back and you take a look at the cut line after round 3, Peter Lunde, who'd been in the mix just after round 1, just didn't play well enough in the next couple rounds to make the cut, missed it by a couple strokes. And Silver Lot missed the cut. Knut Vallen Holland missed the cut. Blair Orn from Iceland missed the cut. Lots of players down the way. I think the big name that people were also watching for was Jackie Chen. He ended up finishing in 82nd place. Jackie Chen, he's a solid player. I don't think he's the 1040 player that he popped up as when he won the Asia Open back in 2020. But great to see him out here. And it was funny watching him on the broadcast because I can't remember if it was Ian or Philo who asked the question, but they're like, who does that look like? Because when he's putting, he putts exactly like Paul Macbeth, looked just like him. But think about that. You emulate the players who are at the top of the game. Jackie Chen, big Paul Macbeth fan, and putts. It's like watching Paul Macbeth video. It's pretty funny.
Yeah. So I think overall, Europeans played about to kind of the expectations may have been a little bit high, but I think that they are not misguided for what we can expect from the season. That's kind of my takeaway from this.
All right, let's run down the top 10 in both divisions. Obviously, we talked about the top players already. Calvin Heimburg finishes 3rd. Luke Humphreys in a tie for 4th with Kevin Jones. Tristan Tanner in 6th place. Adam Hammes, Scott Withers, and Ricky Wysocki all finish in a tie for 7th. And Thomas Gilbert and Luke Sampson finish in a tie for 10th. What stands out to you here?
There's a lot of names that I did not really expect in the top 10. I think it is the case of Vegas highlighting some players, but I don't expect it as a predictor for them to be super relevant all season long.
So you mean some folks like maybe Luke Humphreys, Tristan Tanner, Scott
Tristan
Withers.
Tanner has historically played well at this event. Last year he finished last year was 106th. Never mind.
He's had good rounds here, I think.
4th in 2020. That's what it was. So it was 2 years ago. Takes 4th in 2020. So he has played well here in the past. I don't think that's for Luke Humphreys, Tristan Tanner, and probably like Luke Sampson. I don't see this as a predictor all season long of success, but it's nice to see them up here and, playing well at the LVC.
Calvin Heimburg felt like somebody who had kind of came into this event with a lot of buzz, expectations maybe that he could win it, ends up finishing. He has a great final round, 13 under, matching the hot round, but hasn't really ever doesn't give himself a chance to win it. I mean, he was putting pressure in a sense on the lead, but he was like 7 or 8 holes ahead of the lead card. So with Heimburg finishing at 36 under, and really he lost some strokes with the putter. What do you make of this performance? Does this feel like, okay, Calvin's going to be in the mix all season long, or does this give you pause because the putter was an issue?
Both. and maybe that's not fair. Maybe it's a little bit cheating, but I think that we are going to see Calvin in the mix. I think that we're going to see him with plenty of podium finishes, but I think that he's going to have a hard time to close out tournaments. And maybe it's not even necessarily close out tournaments, but he's going to find himself too far back after rounds 2 or rounds 3, depending on the length of the tournament, where a great final round isn't going to be enough to keep him to keep him competitive for the win. It'll get him up into 3rd place, but if you look at his rounds, he could not put together the Circle 1 and the Circle 2 putting both consistently enough. And I think that it's going to be something that holds him back moving forward if he does not improve that putter quickly. I'm sorry, but as you kind of mentioned, 77%, 20%, that's not good enough. That is not good enough. And if you look, fairway hits 2nd, Circle 1 in regulation 1st, Circle 2 in regulation 2nd,
killing it.
Birdie percentage 6th, like all these stats, some scramble 7th, like he is killing it everywhere else. But when competition is this good, there is a limit to how great you can play everywhere else and still overcome a subpar putter. And I think Calvin needs to get that putter up right now because I think he's beyond the limit.
Over in FPO, rounding out your top 10, Haley King finishes in 4th place, Evelina Salonen in 5th, Ella Hansen, 6th place, Missy Gannon, 7th, Holland Handley, 8th, and then in a tie for 9th, Jen Allen and Kat Murch. I think the obvious standout there, number 1, Haley King, coming all the way back and sort of recovering from some early struggles to finish in 4th. And then, of course, Ella Hansen finishing in 6th place. Fantastic 9-under final round. And, it's not just that these courses suit Ella Hansen, of course. She's a bomber. But when you look at the stats compared to what she did at this course what this tournament a year ago, she's improving across the board, including with the putter. Ella Hansen's going to be in the mix this year.
That's definitely the case. I think Ella Hansen's putt is an example of a putt that may not be quite at the level it needs to be, but is not so far off that she can't overcome it with excellent play elsewhere. And maybe that's unfair of me to compare in terms of Calvin and Ella, but
they're at different tiers of their division. Let's
right.
be honest.
Yes. And Ella, 15 strokes gained tee to green. Good. Not quite at the elite level that she needed in order to win, but her strokes gained on the putting green, she had 5.88. It was good for a top sixth place.
That's amazing.
Which is, remember, last year a big hindrance for her. So shout out to Ella Hansen. I also want to give a shout out to Haley King. Final round 8-under, one off the hot round with 6 OB strokes.
Oh my God. That's crazy. That feels very Haley King to me.
It does feel very, very Haley King. I think
sniping it all over the course and also going out of bounds a ton.
She shows us that she has, I think, probably the highest ceiling right now of those young and up and coming players. She's going to be a threat this season.
Yeah,
was last season, going to be again.
She had the most OB strokes of anybody in the top 10, and still finished in 4th, solo 4th, 8 shots off the lead. How about this? She went out of bounds 8 times more than Katrina Allen and lost to Katrina Allen by 8 strokes. So sometimes you just look at it and there it is. Holland Handley also, a name that's kind of been popping up here and there over the last year or two, and back in the top 10. Really interested to see what Holland Handley's development looks like. Has a great all-around game. Decent putter, good tee to green, a name to keep an eye on. And shout out Kat Murch, finishing inside the top 10. Okay. We got to talk about Eagle. He ended up falling down the leaderboard as it kind of looked like he threw in the towel a little bit and didn't want to be out there that much in the final round. Finishes tied for 21st. But that came after a not great 1-under in the final round. This is a course where other people are shooting 13 down. He was putting great, but he wasn't sharp. He went out of bounds 6 times and just kind of didn't look like fully engaged in the round. It could have been a much better weekend for him, but it did seem, Josh, that the lack of the forehand was just a little too much to have to try to overcome when it was all said and done. Like, even if he has a great final round and you spot him another 12 strokes well, actually, you know what? If he shoots a 13 under, he's going to the playoff with everyone else. So I take it back. But I don't know that he had that in him this weekend, given the way that, he just didn't have the option for the long forehands.
And that's exactly right, because it's not just the case of, it's really easy to look and say, oh, well, last year Eagle threw a forehand here, he birdied. This year he threw a backhand and he took a bogey. There's 2 strokes, right? It's not just about the holes where he did last year and didn't this year and the exact correlation of numbers of throws that it ended up taking. It's about confidence. It's about the belief in your game. And when you're walking up and looking at a stretch of golf ahead of you, asking yourself, how am I going to play it? What do I expect to shoot? And when you look at it and you say, well, 3 of the 4 holes I normally would have thrown a forehand and I can't this year, that is demoralizing. It changes the way you think about the course. It changes the way you think about how you're going to play. It changes how you think about your own game. And so I think it's a perfect, as you said, kind of not really giving it his all in the final round. And I don't blame him. It had been a weekend where he had obviously been trying to battle through, and he's taking time off now in order to recover and prepare for later stretches of the tour. And it's impossible to say exactly how many strokes Eagle's forehand gives him. But you can tell that when it comes to at least the mental side of the game and the way that you think about golf, Eagle was clearly affected and did not play his best golf as a result.
So they play Innova course twice, rounds 2 and 4. Last year, he shot 16 strokes better. And I'm not counting to par, just the actual number of throws. 16 shots better last year. Like, the winning scores this year were not at the level that we saw, even if you account for the par changes that we saw from Eagle last year. So we know that he left a lot on the table. Of course, a lot of that has to do with how bad his final round was. If he shoots like a 10 under, we're only saying it's 7 strokes better, but clearly it was affecting him. It was affecting him. It's as simple as that. He doesn't really look comfortable throwing like turnover backhands and stuff like that. And, I don't think I agree with Philo saying that it cost him 5 strokes a round not to have his forehand, but it definitely cost him some strokes. And I think what you said is spot on, that it's more about like when you are like, okay, this is the shot that I want to throw, and that sometimes you can't throw the shot you want to throw. That's mentally challenging as much as it is physically challenging with actual execution. Okay. We're going to save a couple of segments here. We're going to talk, I want to talk about the coverage from Disc Golf Network. Also want to review the tournament a little bit overall. We're going to save that for Thursday's show. So join us then to talk about DGN and just kind of like, where is this tournament on the Pro Tour? What's good? What needs work? We'll talk about that on Thursday. So right now we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to take a look at whether we're going to be overreacting or if we're on target with some takes. So stick around. It's the Upshot. The Upshot is presented by Pound Disc Golf, makers of the best bags in the sport. Well, the Pound 2022 ambassadors have been announced, and you've got to hear these names. Nate Sexton, Jeremy Colling, Lisa Fakis, Dustin Keegan, Zoe Andike, Cole Radalin, Maria Oliva, Vanessa Van Dyken, and Christian Dietrich are all going to be repping Pound. They'll be wearing Pound bags out on the course, and of course they are, because these are the best bags in the game. Go to pounddiscgolf.com to check out your options and get ready for their next custom drop coming at the beginning of February. Welcome back to the Upshot. It's time for a new segment, Overreaction or On Target. Everybody's going to have takes coming out of the first tournament of the year. Some of them are going to be outlandish. Some of them might be true. So we're going to throw some takes out there and decide whether it's an overreaction or if it's on target. So I will throw one at you first. You ready?
Yep. Hit me with it.
All right. We know we didn't talk about it, but we did discuss it on our Rapid React show. Kona Panis missed the cut. And her putting was a big part of the problem. Shot just 13% in round 3 from circle 1. So overreaction or on target. Kona's putting is going to keep her out of a podium finish all season long.
I have been as quick to point out how bad Kona's putting is as much as anybody else. But that being said, I think that, in round 2, she did putt 71% from C1X and still 0 from circle 2. And then round 1, 60% C1X. I'm going to go overreaction. I think she's going to have a tournament that she puts together that the putting will be good enough to not hold back the rest of her game to keep her off of the podium.
Okay. What you got for me?
So, Drew Gibson, currently rated 1035. My take, Drew Gibson is going to join the 1040 club, and he is going to play like it all season. We're going to be talking about him with Calvin Heimberg, Chris Dickerson, right? The high-level 1040 guys all season long.
On target. On target. This is not just Las Vegas Challenge. This is what we saw from Drew at the end of last season. This is what we've seen from Drew's progression as a player, getting more mature, improving the putting. I feel like, if anything, the fact that it's not like he just had like unsustainably hot rounds out of nowhere. Like, the guy was throwing it great, he was putting it great, and he overcame a bad first round. He was the best player overall at this tournament. If he had just a solid first round instead of sort of a poor first round, he wins this tournament by 3 or 4 strokes. Mm-hmm. No playoff necessary. So I think it's absolutely on target. Okay. Katrina Allen wins Player of the Year.
Which one?
One win. Which one? Not BDGA. Not BDGA, which she always wins.
This makes it hard.
Let's say Ultra World Disc Golf Player of the Year.
Okay. That one feels on target this time. And
ooh.
So here's what I'm going to say. My favorite, I love power rankings in all sports, and my favorite power rankings are MLB power rankings post game 1. It's my favorite thing. They're absolutely useless as power rankings go, but there's always one team in those power rankings based on last season, based on this season. Same thing I think for disc golf, that just feel right. That just the way they're playing, the confidence, and look, Katrina's putting was not. It's not like she turned around and is now the best putter on tour, but as you said, I think you hit it right, spot on. She missed some circle 1 putts that, are ones that an elite player should be making, but turns around and eagles the next hole or birdies the hole after that. Or, she bounces back and she looks more confident than ever. I think it's on target. I think Katrina Allen is a very likely candidate to win Player of the Year this year based on what we're seeing.
Okay.
Okay. Here's one for you. Gannon Buhr outperforms Kyle Klein this season. 2 young players. I mean, you just got done talking about Gannon being the real deal.
He's the real deal, but I'm calling this one an overreaction.
Okay.
Kyle Klein has proven it for a full season on tour. And just because he didn't have a great LVC and Gannon Buhr did, does not mean that I'm going to suddenly say, oh, well, Kyle Klein is, he's washed and here comes Gannon, who's the next big thing. Look, Kyle Klein, like, if I made you pick right now, who's going to have the better career, Kyle Klein or Gannon Buhr? What do you say to that question?
I don't know. How do you?
It's hard to project young players
It's
like
so
that.
hard to project that far out. Yeah.
But I mean, Kyle Klein has done this for 2 seasons, right? He's been a competitor at the ends of big tournaments, and I just think we're more likely to see Kyle Klein win a tournament this year than Gannon Buhr, and I don't think I'm ready to upgrade Gannon from one tournament, so I think it's an overreaction.
Okay.
Tristan Tanner wins Breakout Player of the Year.
I think that's an overreaction. One, I think Breakout Player of the Year is really hard to sell on the first tournament. That's one that, could be a little bit, that's a little hard. I think a more likely candidate actually is Luke Humphreys.
Oh.
And the reason why is there was a post or a comment in our live session when we were talking about Luke Humphreys. I'll pull it up real quick and I'll credit them. So if they're wrong, then you can go harass them. But Dranzel in our subscriber Discord said that Luke just started practicing putting for the first time this offseason. He made some post on Instagram last week about it. So he just started practice putting and then comes out and plays pretty well with 82% and 32% circle 1 and circle 2 putting. So if this is sustainable from him, I think he's a lot more likely candidate.
So your take is Luke Humphreys wins Breakout Player of the Year.
Yeah, that's my
overreaction.
Well, shoot.
What you got for me?
Okay. Linus wins an Elite Series event. Linus Carlson wins an Elite Series event this season.
Oh, wow. I feel like I don't even know if I can call it an overreaction because it's not like he was in the mix this weekend. No,
but he wasn't in the mix. But remember, you said it that this is not a course for him.
Sure.
Right? Didn't have the distance, but in terms of putting, 92% circle 1X, 31% circle 2 putting,
great numbers.
75% for 5th in scramble percentage. You put him on a course that's shot shaping and he does that.
I mean, he's rated in the mid 1030s.
Yep.
It feels appropriate. It doesn't feel like that's like some weird, European bubble causing inflated ratings happening. He looked apart. I don't think I can give him an Elite Series win though. So I'm going to call it an overreaction. It's hard to win an Elite Series event. Even if you're a great player like Linus Carlson, like a podium, I could see that. A top 10, I will 100%. I'm on target top 10, maybe podium, but it's tough to beat out everybody to win a tournament. And so I'm going to say overreaction, but I think that he's got a lot of potential.
Okay. All right.
How about this one? Gannon Buhr finishes as the #1 putter on tour this season.
Here's my hot take with that. The higher Gannon Buhr's average finish is, the less likely I think it is he finishes as #1 putter. I think that his nerves got to him. I think you're going to see nerves get to him again. And if he is in high competitive situations, that his putting is going to fail him in final rounds. But that being said, I still think that in terms of betting on Gannon versus anybody else is probably the best bet. Like if you were giving me odds on this right now, I think this is probably the best odds. So I'm gonna go a very cautious on target.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gannon Buhr was the number 6 on tour in circle 1 putting last year, 87%. He was the top players were at 90%. Corey Ellis and Andrew Marweed.
Okay.
He was a little bit further back in circle 2 putting, but I think he's going to fly up those leaderboards just based on what we saw. He was at 29%. The leader, Corey Ellis, at 36%. So Corey Ellis was 100%, no doubt about it, the #1 putter on tour last year, leading both circle 1X and circle 2 putting categories. So
there's the person to chase.
That's the guy to chase.
Okay. Next take. Evelina Salonen does not get a win because of her putter. I
think that's on target. I think in Europe, it would be an overreaction.
Mm-hmm.
And so if we're, I'm counting Elite Series, US
Yep.
Elite Series and majors. I'm not counting
Yep.
like European tournaments with.
I'll even count PCS Sula Open because
Sure. Okay.
you're gonna have enough players.
I'm gonna say that's on target. I do think it's enough of an issue and has been enough of an issue that it will be difficult for her to overcome that when she has to play against another 10 great players. If it's only 2 other great players, there's going to be weekends where she puts it together and she'll win. But I don't know that you can beat Paige and Kat and Kristen and Hannah and Haley and Ella, etc. if you want to try to win. It's hard to win. And so I'm going to say that even though she's won Elite Series events in the past, keep in mind, but I think the competitive level of the division has risen enough that this actually is going to be on target. She's going to get podium finishes, no doubt.
Yep.
But I think that she will not win one because of the putter.
Okay.
All right. Last one here. Ella Hansen podiums at an Elite Series event. I'm really stealing this one from you, but
that's all right. Looking back, Ella Hansen had 3rd place at the U.S. Women's Championship. Other than that, that was really her only podium finish. And overall, in terms of just the season, I think that was really her only Ella Hansen we did not expect much from Ella Hansen last season. It was her only, though, she had one other top 10, and that was 10th at OTB Open. So in terms of placement, Ella Hansen, she definitely came onto the scene. I think, though, this is on target this year. If her putting is going to continue to improve, as we've seen it improve, if her control of her game is going to continue to improve, it's probably going to be at OTB Open or at the Portland Open. That would feel very on brand. But I think it's very likely that we see that happen. So I'm going to say that's on target.
I agree. I think that she's going to pull it off again. And we've seen her game improve steadily over the last year and a half. So I like it. Really quick, before we sign it off, let's take a quick look at our picks from last week. And Josh scores 3 points, correctly picking Calvin Heimberg, Katrina Allen, and Paige Pierce to make the podiums. Missed on Eagle McMahon, Nate Sexton, and Hannah Blomroos. Blomroos missed the cut. Nate Sexton almost missed the cut. We'll talk more about the cut line on Thursday's show and some other interesting notes on that. So 3 points for Josh. I scored 8 points. I got Calvin and Drew to make the podium, missed on Eagle. I picked Katrina Allen to win, get a 5-point bonus for that. And I also had Paige just missed on a perfect podium. Evelina Salonen not quite getting it. I had her in 3rd place, but close to the 10-point bonus for the 3 in a row. That's the little trifecta action on the horse race. So
1 European away from
8 points for Charlie, 3 points for Josh. That's what I like to see to start the year.
It's all right. I'm giving you false confidence. I play better from behind anyway.
All right. That is going to do it for today's show. Thank you so much for tuning in. Hope you join us for our interview series. Tomorrow, we'll be talking with Jonathan Gomez, the founder of Jomez Pro, about the progression of the company, this new $250,000 a year rights deal that they're paying to have access to lead card on the Disc Golf Pro Tour, and a whole lot more. So we'll see you there, and then we'll be back with you on the Thursday show to continue our conversations about Las Vegas Challenge and start to look ahead to the rest of the season. For Josh Mansfield, I'm Charlie Eisenhood saying so long, and we'll talk to you on Thursday right here on The Upshot.